A lot of designers who are looking to switch from Adobe Creative Cloud to Affinity have asked me about Affinity and accessibility. Can you create an accessible PDF from Affinity? And if so, how accessible is a PDF exported from it? Here's what you need to know if you're looking to create accessible PDFs from Affinity. Welcome to Design Domination, where you'll gain confidence, clarity, and a competitive edge in a crowded marketplace so you can dominate your competition. A lot of designers want to get away from Adobe's subscription model and their ever increasing rates. I mean, my God, the last one I think is up to $70 now, USD. The Affinity suite of design software was much less expensive than Adobe's, and it was a one-time fee. But when Canva bought Affinity back in 2024, they've since combined Adobe Designer, Photo, and Publisher into a single app, and they made them free. So of course, more graphic designers are looking to switch from Adobe. Now, almost 5 years ago, I did a comparison of Adobe InDesign versus Affinity Publisher. Which one should you use? Well, I mentioned that one reason not to switch from Adobe InDesign to Affinity is the lack of accessibility features in Affinity. Well, a lot has changed since then, especially since Affinity has added some accessibility features. So I was excited to test drive version 3.1.0. And I want to go over these features in some detail because I don't want designers to just hear Affinity has accessibility features and then say, yay, great. You really need to have all of the information. Okay, so let's talk about Affinity's accessibility features. Well, first and foremost, tags are a feature in Affinity. And thank goodness for that, because they are the most essential accessibility feature, because tags are the foundation of an accessible document. If you don't have a tag document, you don't have an accessible one, period. In Affinity, you set tags on paragraph styles, just like you do in InDesign. And you even set them the exact same way that you do in InDesign, as export tags on the paragraph styles. To set a tag on a paragraph style in Affinity, in the Text Styles panel, click on the Styles Options menu and select Edit. Then select Export Tags. And under PDF, set the export tag choosing from P or any one of 6 levels of headings, or you can select No Change to inherit from the parent style if it has one. Now, the disadvantage here is that you're limited to only paragraph and heading tags. Now, in InDesign, you are too, okay? But InDesign also outputs lists, tables, and tables of contents correctly if they're set to automatic. Affinity does not tag lists, tables, and tables of contents correctly. It outputs lists as paragraphs, tables of contents as link and link OBJR tags that are independent of their table of contents entries, and those are in P tags. And tables are output as P tags. So that means you have to retag them throughout the PDF. And that can be a lot of manual work depending on how long your document is and how many other types of tagged content there are. Now, another thing that's important for accessibility is controlling the reading order. Well, Affinity has a reading order panel. You can access it by going to Window, Layout, Reading Order. The reading order panel in Affinity works similarly to InDesign's articles panel. You can add text or images into the articles that you want, and that will help manage the reading order. And you can also name and rename articles. You can exclude text or images from the reading order too, and they will still show in the reading order panel, but a cross will appear next to them. And then you can just click that and you toggle back and forth between excluding and including something. To adjust the reading order, you simply drag an element up or down in the reading order panel, and you can drop it when you see a blue highlight where you want it to appear. The blue highlight will either be a blue line that appears between elements in the list or a highlight on an article's entry. If you happen to drop it in the wrong place, you can just readjust where you want it to go. Now, like in InDesign, Affinity artifacts any elements on a master page unless you edit them on the page on which they appear. Affinity's help docs say entries for the following types of objects are automatically included in the reading order. Text objects, meaning frame text, artistic text, shape text, and path text. Other objects for which you specified alt text. By default, reading order follows object positions on the page, top to bottom and left to right when objects share the same vertical position. Now, something to keep in mind is that this reading order only seems to affect the architectural reading order, the Z reading order, not the tag order. When I exported to PDF, I looked at the architectural reading order, which was mostly correct. But the tags were a mess. They were in the wrong order, and the tags for the table, for example, appeared first in the tags tree. Also, the image's figure tag appeared out of order. If I go back to anchor it, Affinity calls anchoring pinning, and then re-export to PDF, what happens is a div tag gets added where the pin is. The figure tag then appears at the bottom of the tags on that page. Something else I noticed in the tags tree was that even though I had threaded the text frames in Affinity, which Affinity calls threading linking, each page's tags appear in their own sect tag, section tag. Something that's interesting is that Affinity says that even shape text and path text are included in the reading order. When I last used text on a path in InDesign, which was InDesign 2025, it was not included in the reading order. I actually had to go back to InDesign and add the same text somewhere else close by on the page in a separate text frame and giving it the same color as the background so that it wasn't visible on the page. But I've since retested text on a path in InDesign 2026 and noticed that it did get tagged. Inside the reading order panel, you can also create articles. Now, this is useful for when you want to group like all of your cover elements into a single article and then have your table of contents in another article and then have your main content be another article. So all you have to do is select the elements that you want to group into an article by command clicking or control clicking if you're using Windows, and then just select each one and then select add article. You can remove elements from an article by dragging them outside of the article. And you can name the article whatever you wish, but give it a descriptive and unique name such as cover, table of contents, main, etc. Select it, click the name, type a new name, and then press return on Mac or enter on Windows. You can add alt text or you can artifact images in Affinity. Go to Window, Layout, Tags. Now, what's strange is that this is found under the tags pane. Alt text is not a tag, and it drives me crazy when I hear people refer to alt text as alt tags. Select the image, select custom, and then either type or paste the alt text. Or you can grab existing alt text from the metadata in the image file by selecting which field to use: XMP title, XMP description, XMP headline, XMP alt text accessibility, or XMP extended description accessibility. You can also artifact an element so that assistive technology such as a screen reader ignores it. Select the image or object, and then in the tags panel, select mark as decoration. You can also add hyperlinks in Affinity, although you cannot add the link alt text like you can in InDesign. They do output with the correct tags, link and link OBJR. However, Affinity breaks out the hyperlink text into its own paragraph. Not only that, but the link is unnested from the paragraph tag, which is not correct. You can also add bookmarks in Affinity. So when you export to PDF and then you select the option to include bookmarks, you will see them in the bookmarks pane in Acrobat. However, I did find that it duplicates each bookmark in the PDF. Now, what I like about this with Affinity is that when you export with the bookmarks, the PDF opens with the bookmarks panel open. Affinity, I guess, somehow sets that to open automatically during the export. InDesign doesn't do that. You have to take the extra step of setting the PDF to open that way. It's a minor thing, but it's pretty cool. You can also add metadata in Affinity. Go to Window, Pixel, Metadata. Select File from the drop-down menu, and then you can add the document title, author, keywords, and so forth. Now, when you're ready to export to PDF, you need to make sure to use the correct export settings. Otherwise, any accessibility work that you've done in Affinity will not come through in the exported PDF. You want to go to File, Export, Export, and you'll find various PDF export options. All of them will allow you to export to a tagged PDF. You just need to make sure tagged PDF is toggled on. You'll also want to toggle on include hyperlinks or bookmarks as well. Okay, so besides some of the issues I've already mentioned, there are some other issues I noticed when testing Affinity for accessibility. It outputs every single line of a paragraph in its own p tag, and it does the same thing for multi-line headings as well. That means that you have to combine all of the containers for a single paragraph or heading into a single P or heading tag manually, or use Acrobat's touch-up reading order tool to reselect them all and retag every multi-line paragraph or heading one by one. Affinity does not convey any role mapping information from styles when exporting to PDF. And that means that you cannot change the role mapping of tags like InDesign lets you do when you do it in the PDF, but InDesign brings that information over. I mean, it just makes it easier to be able to globally change the association of certain styles with tags. Affinity allows you to assign text in other languages and set it on a paragraph or character style. And you can select from an enormous list, which is much longer than InDesign's, but the language does not actually get set anywhere when exported to PDF. So what's the point? So can you use Affinity to create accessible PDFs? You definitely need to take all of these points into consideration when deciding whether or not to use Affinity to create accessible PDFs. If you have short documents that have very few hyperlinks, lists, tables, forms, block quotes, and other elements that would require manual tagging in the PDF, well, then you shouldn't have to do too much work in the PDF. But you have to keep in mind that you're going to have to adjust those tags in the PDF. If you have a document that has a lot of those elements, it could be a lot of work to go and manually tag them all properly. I just hope that Affinity will continue adding the basic and necessary accessibility features that designers need. But sorry to say, Affinity just isn't there yet as a full-on replacement to InDesign. Let me know what you think of Affinity's accessibility features and if you're using it for accessibility work. If this content was helpful, you can support the podcast by buying me a coffee. It might actually end up being a glass of wine or some tea, but you could go to buymeacoffee.com/creativeboost.